Hi, this is Scott with eTrailer. Today we're taking a look at and installing a Roadmaster base plate for 2017 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. To flat tow safely, there's 5 main components that you're going to need. You're going to need your base plate, you're going to need your tow bars, you're going to need your safety cables, you're going to need some type of diode wiring and a braking system. Now with those, we went ahead and installed our base plate. Our Roadmaster base plate is going to be a really good option for you if you have a Jeep. One of the things I like about this one is everything is removable on the front of this, so you don't have a big portion of it sticking out of the front. You can actually remove the arms that come off the front of it. Even this crossbar comes off out of the way, so you really don't have a whole lot of parts sticking out the front of your vehicle. Another thing I like about this one is it does have the little tubes that stick out of the front here, and that's going to allow you to hook up your 6-pole wiring. That's going to allow you to connect to your RV. Another thing I really like about this one is it's got a really nice powder coat gloss black finish on it, so that's going to protect it from any kind of road debris hitting it and causing it to rust down the line. So it's going to be a really durable finish. Another thing I like about this one is installation for this one is pretty straightforward. You don't have to take a whole lot of things apart like you do on a lot of other base plate systems. This one is really not too bad to do if you plan on doing it yourself. So if you have any questions about this base plate, you can feel free to leave a comment or any questions down below. We would love to hear from you. As far as installation, it's really straightforward. You should be able to do it yourself in your driveway or in your garage. To start our installation, the first thing we wanted to do is get our skid plate marked out. We're going to be needing to make some cuts on this one. This is the Rubicon model, so it does have the steel skid plate. So basically, I went by the instructions and measured out and kind of marked out where I need to cut on both sides. So to do this and make it a little bit easier, I'm going to end up removing the skid plate. You can do it with it up there. I'm just going to take it down so it makes it a little bit easier. Now to make my cuts, this is some pretty thick steel, so what I'm going to do is use my angle grinder with a cut-off wheel on it and just cut around where I made my marks. After we have our cuts made, I went back through with a grinding disc and just cleaned up all my edges, and then came through and just painted them up. I just used a stick pen and just cleaned them up. That way we don't get any rust or corrosion down the line. But now with the cuts made, we'll go ahead and put our skid plate back in place. Now we can get our base plate put into position. Took these 2 bottom bolts out of my skid plate, and I have this just a little bit loose for now. What I want to do, get this slid up the side of the frame. This can be a little bit of a tight fit. If it gives you a little bit of trouble, you can always take a rubber hammer. Now once we get it lifted up, we just want to line up our bottom bolts to our skid plate. You may need to take a hammer and just bump it into place. I'm using a ball peen. And once you get your bolt started, that's going to help hold it in place and make it a little bit easier for you to line everything else up. Now I'll just come back through and tighten down my skid plate bolts along the front. Now, one thing to remember on all of our hardware that is going to be used to mount our base plate up, we'll be using red Loctite, and that's just going to make sure everything stays in place. One thing I'll recommend is you're going to have this long bolt with a washer going in from the inside of the frame out, and it's really hard to get at with the skid plate in place. So I recommend doing this before you put your skid plate even up into position. This is really tight space up in here to get this put in place. And that goes for the same on both sides. It is very tight fit. Now for our hardware going on to this end of the bolt that comes out, we're going to have this spacer. We want to get the spacer put in place. Then we're going to follow that up with our plate. Our plate goes on. Just be careful not to push your bolt back through. And these plates are side specific. Now we'll put on our large washer, split lock washer, and a nut. And I'll leave these loosely in place. I'm leaving it backed off quite a ways because what I want to do before I come back through and tighten everything down after we have everything in place is I'll just drop some red Loctite on top of both these bolts on both sides. And then that way we'll come back through and snug everything down when everything's up. Now we have our side plate hanging down loose. We did get our base plate lined up with these holes on the side. Take your time and just tap this around with a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer. Just get them lined up the best you can. And now in the bottom of our skid plate, it may be helpful, and it even tells you in the instructions, you may need to take a little bit of this edge out because the main thing you want to do is be able to get these handle nuts to go up and in and line up with these holes, and your hardware is going to go through and through this plate and through there, so you're going to need a little bit of room to get through there. As far as our hardware goes, we're going to take our shorter bolts in our kit. We're going to use a split washer, a flat washer. Then we're going to line up our plate, go through the top one first, and we do have our red Loctite on our bolt. You're going to take your handle nut, slide it through. A lot of times it's easier to go by feel on this. Now you may need to give this a few different shots. What you can do with your handle nut is you can bend this at whatever angle you need. Just be careful not to break your weld on the end. So just bend it wherever you need it, and then you can get it to line up with your bolt that way. Now that I have the top one started, now I can start on the bottom one, and it's basically going to be the same procedure and the same hardware with red Loctite. Now with everything lined up where we want it, we'll come back through and snug down all of our hardware. Now we'll come back through and torque down all of our hardware to the specifications listed in our instruction manual. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can pick one up here at eTrailer or take a look at your local auto parts store. You should be able to rent one there. Now you got your little wires hanging down. All you have to do is just come back through and snip these off. Sometimes you can get them to break off if you get lucky, but most of the time you're better off just snipping them. Now that we have everything torqued down, now we just put our arms in place. Just want to line up these ends, these round tabs, line them up. Now we can pop our pins in place. With the arms in place, that'll do it for our installation of our Roadmaster base plate kit for our 2017 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.